Good evening. Welcome back to Hellhound's Late Night Spook Show here on the Horror and Metal channel. So, now we're at the final installment of our little top 10 horror films from every year in the 1980s videos. So yeah, we're in 1989, which was apparently the year of the underwhelming horror sequel. You know, I'm of course talking about Halloween 5, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Sleepaway Camp 3, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, The Fly 2, Chud 2, Howling 5. Yeah, a lot of disappointing horror sequels came out that year, but quite a few good horror films came out that year as well, and those are the ones we're going to take a look at today. So let's go and get started. My top 10 favorite horror films in 1989, the final installment in the top 10 1980s series here on the Horror Metal channel. Alright, so number 10 is going to be Parents. Yeah, this might deserve to be a little higher, but I haven't seen this in a long time. I don't remember a whole lot about it because it's been a while. I probably should have watched it again to have it fresh in my mind for this video, but yeah, it's a horror comedy, and of course Dennis Quaid, who I've always been a huge fan of, and Mary Beth Hurt play these parents of this young boy who suspects that they may be cannibalistic serial killers who murder people and make them into food and then eat them. So yeah, like I said, it's a horror comedy, very dark sense of humor, very twisted movie, but you know, pretty funny too, and yeah, very zany and over the top, and I just love it for that. Yeah, I love that Vestron video, old school Vestron video logo. But yeah, Parents. I'll have to give this one another watch soon. I suggest you do the same because it's pretty entertaining. Yeah, my 10th favorite 1989 horror movie. Check it out. All right, next we have Shocker, directed by the late, great Wes Craven, one of my favorite horror directors. This movie is an absolute blast. It's not really particularly scary. You know, it's not very dark. It's more of a really cheesy, really campy, schlocky B-movie type with an excellent soundtrack by Alice Cooper and some other greats. You know, it feels like a very, kind of feels like a music video in a way. Yeah, basically, Mitch Pileggi, who's the highlight as Horace Pinker, as a serial killer who's caught and sent to the electric chair by a youth, and then he returns as a ghost to get revenge on the young man who sent him to do his execution. Yeah, Peter Burr plays the main character, and he kind of underplays it. He has some moments of bad acting, but yeah, he's likable enough. He kind of wins you over anyway. But like I said, Mitch Pileggi definitely steals the show as Horace Pinker, a great horror villain, and you know, he plays it more serious when he's alive. Once he becomes a ghost who possesses people and then uses television, yeah, he surfs the different television channels, so to speak. Yeah, then he kind of becomes more comedic for sure. I think this is Wes Craven's attempt to create another Freddy Krueger after he sold the rights to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Yeah, so it's not nowhere near as great as Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, Horace Pinker's he's no Freddy, but it's still pretty enjoyable nonetheless. I do think they overcomplicated it a little too much by making it to where the main character, played by Peter Berg, is like might be Horace Pinker's son, and then he, you know, dreams about the murders before they happen, and then materializes himself at the scene of the murders, and all kinds of the crazy stuff. It's like, did they really need all that? Couldn't you just caught Horace Pinker in the act? Did he really need to be his son and somehow be dreaming about the murders and have this psychic link and all that? I didn't think the movie needed that, but oh well, yeah, still enjoyable flick. It's got all kinds of problems. It's very flawed, but highly amusing at the same time. Like I said, a very electrifying soundtrack and some dazzling special effects. Yeah, Shocker, check it out. And it's very similar to another 1989 horror flick on my list, The Horror Show. Now, most people prefer Shocker to this one. I actually kind of prefer this one. I feel like this one utilizes its R rating just a little more. I think this is much more brutal and gory, and a little darker, and maybe a little more serious too. It's still pretty comedic. It's still got quite a few laughs. Yeah, this time it's Brian James who plays Max Jinky, another similar serial killer like Horace Pinker, who's sent to the electric chair, executed, and then comes back as a ghost to terrorize the man who sent to his execution. Yeah, sound familiar? But yeah, Brian James is hilarious as Max Jinky, the meat cleaver wielding psychopath who laughs just like Skeletor. That snicker that he has is very funny stuff. But Lance Henriksen plays the main cop who arrested Jinky and sent him to his death. And I like him a lot better than Peter Berg. Lance Henriksen's always been a favorite of mine. And yeah, in this one, Max Jinky terrorizes the whole family instead of just, just one person. But yeah, some great laughs and great scares. They overcomplicated this one a lot too with this explanation of how the electricity transformed Max into this otherworldly supernatural being. Like, couldn't it just be he died and came back as a ghost? Like, why do they need to overcomplicate these movies so much? I think a more simplified formula would work just fine. But these movies are both still a blast. I'd say check them out. And I do prefer the horror show by a hair, but really they're pretty much even for the most part. I just really like Lance Henriksen. What can I say? And yeah, this was directed by James Isaac. So, but... Alright, so next we have Stepfather 2. Yeah, this isn't quite as good as the original, which I talked about in my 1987 horror movies list. Yeah, Terry O'Quinn returns as the maniacal stepfather, the only returning cast member, and he's found himself a new family, and he's trying to repeat the process, or start the cycle all over. Yeah, he kills... he's just a family man who wants the perfect family, the home sweet home, traditional, old-fashioned... life, and when his family disappoints him, he brings out the knife and dishes out some punishment, and then changes his identity and starts the process over. And this one we see a little more of the process after he escapes from the insane asylum. I don't know how he survived the last movie. He was clearly dead, but this one he has a scar from where he was stabbed in the last one. Yeah, Terry O'Quinn's great yet again as the homicidal stepfather. This time his family consists of Meg Foster, who's his new love interest, and her son. Caroline Williams, who was also great in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Leprechaun 3, Hatchet 3, and several others. She's no stranger to the horror genre, and she's pretty funny. Here's the nosy busybody who may be on to the stepfather. Yeah, some pretty cool kills. Not a whole lot of them, but the movie's not really about that. Yeah, it's like I said, it's not like a lot more generic and by the numbers and just a little more basic, and it's kind of a rehash of the first movie, but it definitely has its moments, and they do a few things differently. It still keeps it pretty fresh. It's by far better than the third film, and especially the remake. But yeah, Stepfather 2, a pretty good sequel. I'd say it's definitely worth checking out, though, like I said, nowhere near as good as the original. Alright, so, number 6, I guess, would be House. Yet another one of my favorite Italian horror movies. This one was directed by Michele Soave and produced by Dario Argento, the great Dario Argento. Yeah, most of it takes place obviously in a church, ancient cathedral. Yeah, it has some flashbacks to medieval Europe where these crusading knights massacred a village and of devil worshippers and built the Gothic church on the cursed remains. Yeah, present day, the cathedral still stands, and the crypt is accidentally unopened and broke the seal and lets loose a otherworldly evil into our realm. Yeah, like all Italian horror movies, the premise is kind of hard to explain. You just gotta see it to really understand it. But I'd say definitely check it out. Yeah, The Church, great Italian horror. You Haven't Got a Prayer, yeah. This is one of Michele Soave's best movies, in my opinion. More on him in another video coming very soon. The Church, check it out. Full of demonic entities and some visually stunning graphics, and definitely check out this uncut, uncensored version. Man, I'm getting tongue-tied. Yeah, The Church. Check it out. Alright, so now we're down to the top 5, right? Alright, so number 5. These aren't really in any strict order, really. Some of my other lists were. These ones not so much. But anyway, yeah, I guess number 5 would be Puppet Master, the original. Yeah, basically, William Hickey, who's only in the movie for like 5 minutes, plays Andre Toulon, who's discovered a way to animate his puppets into living beings. He commits suicide early on, but then it cuts to present day, and there's 5 of his puppets: Blade, Tunneler, Leech Woman, Pinhead, and Jester. Attack some psychics who are staying at the motel in which Andre Toulon took his life. And I guess they're trying to discover. They're there for a funeral. Turns out somebody else might have discovered Toulon's secret of life after death, and they got to get to the bottom of it using their psychic powers. And it's pretty interesting kills. I really like the puppets. I really like the stop motion effects. Has a pretty interesting surprise villain. Has like a twist. I guess I won't give away. That's kind of obvious. Like I said, I really like these puppets. I do enjoy Puppet Master 2 and 3 just a little more than this one, but still a great movie nonetheless. I really like the scene where 2 of the characters are trying to get it on in bed, but then they're attacked by Tunneler and Leech Woman. And a lot of standout scenes like that one. And Blade is actually my favorite of the puppets. Yeah, he's really cool. And I guess he's got his own movie recently. Yeah, there's so many sequels, hard to keep track of them, but this is the original, and it's definitely worth checking out. Number 4. Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Yes, I like this movie. Bite me. I know it's flawed. I know it's a bad movie. But these movies weren't Shakespeare to begin with. I know it's a bummer that he doesn't spend enough time in New York City, blah, blah, blah. Maybe he teleports. There's some stupid things in it. I don't care. Kane Hodder's still great as Jason. This is his second time playing him. He doesn't look as awesome as he did in Part 7. Part 7 had that awesome, heavily decayed, nearly skeletal zombie look with some exposed bones everywhere. He looked amazing in Part 7. This one, not so much. Even when he is unmasked, he doesn't look nearly as good. But like I said, Kane Hodder's still great. Some pretty brutal kills. Actually, I like the scenes on the boat. I like that they did something different. It wasn't just in the camp yet again. I do wish it was more of a take place in Manhattan, like I said. But, it's still highly entertaining. I think it's a very fun movie. It's definitely one of the more amusing entries, in my opinion, with a great soundtrack as well. And it just has that wonderful 80s charm, that 80s feel. It's got some problems, sure, but I don't dislike this movie. I think it's one of the more entertaining in the series. Sue me. Yeah, it's my opinion. Deal with it. I like this movie. It's a blast. Don't hold the fact that they didn't have the budget to film more scenes in Manhattan against it. It wasn't their fault. A very fun flick. And I like the lead. I like the final girl, Rennie, played by Jensen Daggett. Yeah, I really like her. She was a cool protagonist, and highly amusing flick. I love all the Jason movies, though, so what can I say? And I think this one's just a blast. Yeah, I know it's got problems, but I don't care. All right, number 3, Warlock, which I really need to upgrade to DVD or Blu-ray. Basically, Julian Sands stars as the title character, a Warlock, who I don't think really has a name, if I remember correctly. I think he's just called the Warlock throughout. He was in the, the 17th century, and, spreading his evil about, but then he casts a spell, which transports him 300 years into the future, cut to present-day Los Angeles, where he attempts to discover the true name of God and to destroy all creation and make him unpowerful. He goes after Cassandra, played by Laurie Singer. Julian Sands is great as the title character, as the main villain, and the spell. He was also being pursued by a witch hunter named Giles Redfern, played by Richard E. Grant, who also was warped to the modern day, and so he's trying to hunt down the evil sorcerer and put an end to his reign of terror. Really cool flick. I really like the setting, the scenes of the big city at night. Great acting. I love Julian Sands, like I said. Richard E. Grant's also great as the witch hunter Redfern. Pretty cool movie. It's directed by Steve Miner, who of course did Friday the 13th 2 and 3 and several others. Really good flick. I suggest you definitely check it out. And I do need to upgrade to DVD or Blu-ray ASAP. I've been meaning to for quite some time. There was followed by 2 sequels. Julian Sands returned for the second one, and then the third one, the Warlock, is played by Bruce Payne, who's always a great villain as well. But I definitely prefer this one. I think this is the best, though the sequels have their moments, you know. But I think the first one's still the best. All right, number 2, my second favorite 1989 horror movie is Intruder. Yeah, slasher flick, which takes place in a grocery store. Yeah, some pretty suspenseful stalk sequences. I really like the isolated, secluded setting of the store, which is closed, you know, at nighttime. Yeah, so Sam Raimi actually plays in this, as does Bruce Campbell, very briefly. Bruce Campbell has a very brief part, and also one of Raimi's favorites, Dan Hicks, is in it as well. So yeah, a lot of people who worked on the Evil Dead movies were involved with this. Yeah, it's pretty gory. It has some really brutal kills and a lot of really bloody, really over-the-top violence. Yeah, yeah, it's got some great gore. And yeah, great setting, great gore, great suspense, a great mystery whodunit element. We don't know who the killer is. And I won't give it away, but it is kind of obvious, though. There's a couple red herring characters that I thought it could possibly be, but I did guess right away it was probably this particular individual who really takes pride in killing people in various brutal ways. I won't give away the death scenes either, because they're very graphic and very gruesome, and pretty intense for 1989, and I think definitely the highlight of the movie. Yeah, Intruder, check it out. It's a great movie. I don't see it talked about very much, but hell, I guess it's my second favorite movie of 1989, in the horror genre anyway. But like I said, these aren't really in any strict order. So number 1, I guess, would have to be Pet Sematary. Of course, based on a novel by Stephen King and directed by Mary Lambert. Yeah, it's a very scary movie, very suspenseful, very sad too. It's a very depressing movie. It has a very bleak, very hopeless, very grim tone. It's very joyless. Yeah, there's not like a lot of humor, a lot of fun here. Yeah, it is very scary. I really like the family. They all do good. Of course, yeah, Dale Midkiff and Denise Crosby from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah, all great acting. The daughter, Ellie Creed, was kind of annoying. I don't know why they needed a psychic character to explain what was going on. I can see what's happening. I don't need a psychic explaining it all. The ghost, Pascal, and all that. But I think my favorite character, of course, has to be Judd Crandall, played by Fred Gwynne. Yeah, Herman Munster himself. Yeah, nobody can do that accent, let a voice quite like him. Dead is better, you know. The ground's got sour. The soil of a man's heart is stonier, you know. Yeah, he's great. He's a lot of fun. But yeah, very depressing movie, kind of a downer, but it is very scary. And I do think, I am one of the many that thinks Zelda was by far the scariest part of the movie. She still gives me chills to this day. Yeah, very, very terrifying, very freaky stuff. But yeah, basically the plot, the Creed family moves to a new house, and turns out with a very dangerous highway right in front, with the truckers not looking where they're going. And there's a cemetery, a pet cemetery nearby, with an Indian burial ground that can actually bring the dead back to life if they're buried there. And once the family discovers the cemetery and has some tragedies happen, all hell breaks loose. Yeah, it's definitely one to check out. It follows the novel pretty closely. It does leave some things out, such as the Wendigo and a few other things. Also, Gage Creed, who's, I guess, kind of the main villain, the young, living dead toddler who becomes evil. Yeah, he doesn't have as much of a personality in this as he does in the novel. I guess it would have been hard to have filmed that or whatever, but yeah, it is pretty faithful to its literary counterpart. It is very worthy of the source material for sure. I definitely prefer this to the recent adaptation, the newer movie which came out a couple years ago. I think this one's far better, though that had a pretty good cast too. Pet Sematary 2, the sequel, which is mostly unrelated, it mentions the events and characters of this one, but doesn't have any returning characters or anything. That's a really fun movie, too. That's more of a horror comedy. I think it's a lot more enjoyable than this one. This was a lot more sophisticated and far scarier, for sure. Yeah, Pet Sematary, a really great Stephen King movie. And speaking of Stephen King, definitely join me on this channel tomorrow for the 10th episode of the Morbid Hour, featuring Sean Urshan, HorrorFan88, and myself, Hellhound. And we'll be talking about our favorite Stephen King adaptations and some of his novels, and what's our favorite, what's our least favorite, what are the most underrated, as well as the legendary heavy metal band Iron Maiden. So stay tuned for that tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, Friday, April 1st. It's not going to be an April Fool's prank either. Yeah, I'm not going to do one of those this year. It's going to be legit, so be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, guys. Well, that was my list. Those were my favorite horror films from 1989. If I left any out or think of some honorable mentions, I'll list them in the description below. Be sure to let me know what your favorites are in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching my late night spook show here on the Horror and Metal channel. I'm Hellhound. And this has been the Late Night Spook Show Creature Feature Shockathon Scarorama in Screamo-Vision. Until next time, later.